be. I'm as free a bird as I can be. I'll build my nest in the sour apple tree, where the bad boys will never bother me. Well, that's me playing the harp, one of my favorite things to do. In fact, singing, making music, telling stories, one of my favorite things since I was a little kid. Luckily, I get to do it with you today. I've been collecting since before I could read. And when I could read, I was so excited. I did very little else but read. Hung out in the library all the time, read every single book in my little village library about stories and the old days and old customs. They had to take me to a bigger library because I still hadn't had enough. And so that's how I laid up my treasures in store. Treasures of old songs and old stories. They've only been written down in recent times for hundreds of years, for thousands of years. They've been passed along just by people telling them to other people, maybe shaping them, changing them just a little bit. My stories are like that. I like to be true to the old way, but they come out differently every time, depending on who is listening and the mood of the day. It's not like TV. It's not like watching reruns. It's not like watching a video the same every time. We may enjoy it, but the stories, they change every time I play them. My listeners hear my words. I put out the images. My listeners make the images of their own in their head. And they're different every time. But some things remain the same. We have some nice old songs. In the old days, they often sang and danced, made their own music. There was no radio to put on, no songs to download. You had to make your own. In fact, it was considered very clever to add a little bit something new to an oldie. So I'm still doing it, and you're helping me. I'm as free a little bird as I can be. I'm as free a little bird as I can be. I'll build my nest in the sour apple tree, where the bad boys will never bother me. Take me home, little birdie, take me home. Take me home by the light of the moon, where the moon's shining bright and the stars giving light. Take me home, little birdie, take me home. Fly away, little birdie, fly away. Fly away by the light of the moon, where the moon's shining bright and the stars giving light. Fly away, little birdie, fly away. I'm as free, little bird, as I can be. I'm as free, little bird, as I can be. I'll build my nest in the sour apple tree, where the bad boys will never bother me. Music changes everything. The simplest little song that you sing to yourself can change the whole mood of a day or for somebody else. You know some. Don't be shy. Just because it's a little baby song you've known forever, it could still be wonderful. Well, I like to remember all those people that I never met that came before. My great-great-great-grandparents that I never met. I never even knew my grandparents. But I think about them and all their hard work and all their struggles and their joys, same as I might know today, and all the care they took to give me the world that I live in. So I like to play my Native American style flute to remember the Native American people that were here on this land before anybody came from other lands. Don't know their names, don't know their language, don't even know their music. But somehow we still have remembered how to make their style of flute. They're very fun to play. Old records tell us that when the first earliest Europeans came to Virginia 400 years ago, they were met and welcomed and greeted by native people, men and women alike, coming out in big crowds, many, many of them playing flutes like these to welcome the visitors for whom they hoped to be friends with. A long time ago, and a lot has happened, but we still have the music, and we can remember them and be grateful for the land they gave us. Sound, huh? I hope it sets the mood for you, because next I have a story, an old story. No one knows how old. It's from Ethiopia. And yet, you know, I found the same story from many different parts of the world, little different versions, little variations. But so many of our ancestors come from Africa. I always like to get something African in the mix. Why not? Let's remember them. Oh, I learned it from a book in the library, from the book Stories to Solve. It's full of great stories with riddles and tricks and questions in it. So, it's not like TV, I think I mentioned that. Hush your mind and open your heart and catch the story that's about to start. You know how it begins? Once upon a time, long, long ago, far, far away, in Ethiopia, so they say, the old king had grown sick and tired and weak. He had ruled the kingdom for long, many years, and peace and plenty had been there for the people at that time. He was a wise king. But as he grew older and weaker, something troubled him very greatly. Who would run the kingdom when he was gone? For his days were coming to an end. Well, he had 3 sons. In those days, they did not have elections to choose their ruler. They did not have a vote. They chose someone from the king's own family to be the next king. But who was going to be able to do the best job? That's what was on his mind. He thought about it as he lay in his bed, for he could no longer walk about. He lay there with servants around to give him his food and drink, To keep the great heavy drapes shut, for the light hurt his eyes, he lay in that darkened room and thought, and came up with a plan. A test to see who would be the new king, who would be the best king. And so it was that his 3 sons were called into his room one dark afternoon. On the table next to his bed were 3 gold coins. My sons, I am old, and the time has come for me to leave. Soon I will be gone, and one of you will be the new king. Today I have a test, a riddle for you. Each of you will take one of these gold coins, go forth into the city, and return here. Buy something with your gold coin that can fill this room. Whoever is successful, he will be the new king. Well, the oldest son didn't even take time to think about it. I think you might know people like that. Somebody who always wants to be first in everything and win anything that's around. He pushed his way, he shoved the other 2 to the side and rushed up and snatched up a coin. I'll be back soon, Father. I'm going to win. You'll see. And off he went, out the heavy carved doors, out into the city beyond. Didn't even think about it. He was sure with a nice gold coin he could buy something to fill a big room like this. Well, the second brother was up next. He picked himself up the floor and dusted himself off. Very cranky, very grouchy. I bet you know people like that, always blaming somebody else for their problems. Yeah. Oh, how dare he rush ahead of me? I want to be the king. I'll be first. You'll see. And he picked his coin off the table, and he went stalking across the room without a word of goodbye, out the heavy carved doors, out into the city, to find something that would fill the room. Oh, he was sure he could do it. The third brother, he was next. People worried about him. He was always singing and wasn't very good at sticking to the jobs and didn't have much education, but he was good-natured and well-liked. He picked up his coin from the table and he looked at it, moved closer to the bed. This is an interesting puzzle, Father. I think I can figure it out. I'll be back soon. Squeezed his father's hand. And off across that polished wood floor, out the heavy doors, out into the city beyond. In the king's room, the servants quietly went about their tasks, but as quiet as could, they whispered to one another, who will solve this puzzle? What could it be? And who will be the new king? And as the time clicked away, they whispered to one another, and the king just turned his head, tired, on his pillow, and looked at the little crack of daylight that showed through the heavy curtains at the windows up above. The sun was growing higher in the sky. It was getting darker. Who would be the first to return before the sun set? Well, they waited a little longer, and then there was a loud and urgent knocking on the door, and the servants pulled open those heavy, beautifully carved doors, and standing there was the oldest brother. He liked to be first in everything. Stand back, and help me. You, I need help. Behind him were heavy wagons pulled by horses, loaded up with bales of hay. That's what he'd bought, all the hay he could afford for 1 gold coin. And he made the servants pull the bales of hay off the wagons, cut open the cords that bound them, and spread that hay, fluff it up. Come on, you, fill it up. Oh, it did cover the floor of that great big king's room, but do you think it actually filled it up to the ceiling? It made everybody sneeze and cough and dust everywhere, and quite a mess, to tell you the truth. But the Oldest son could see he had not succeeded. He went over to the corner of the room. The servants had to clean up the mess, and kicked against the wall, grumbled to himself. And he did not win. He had not succeeded. And when all the mess was cleaned up, the king just turned his tired head on his pillow and looked at the crack of daylight that shone between the curtains. The day was moving on. Where were the other two? They didn't have to wait too much longer. There was another pounding on the door, and sure enough, when the heavy wooden doors were drawn open, there was the second son, and behind him more wagons pulled by horses, not quite so many, loaded up with stacks of sacks. And the servants were ordered to pull off the sacks, tear them open, and empty out the contents. And what do you think it was? Oh, it was pretty clever. Didn't fill the room. They were sacks full of feathers, light as a feather. You know how have you ever seen them? The kind of feathers that you stuff a pillow with. They're light and fluffy, and they flew everywhere. They landed in the drapes of the curtains. They landed on people's hair. It looked like snow had fallen. But when all the feathers were unloaded, and they were all fluffed up as tall as they could be, they were taller than the hay had been, but they did not fill the room. And really, would you have wanted to be in a room that was filled up to the top with feathers? They were ever so difficult to clean up. The servants had to do it, because the second eldest son had gone over and started a fight with his brother, kicking against the wall and pulling and calling names and quarrelsome. The king didn't want to hear it. He just turned his head on his silken pillow and looked at the crack that shone between the curtains. The day was coming to a close. It was getting dark. Where was that third son? Didn't he take this seriously at all? But before the sun had set, before the day was out, there did come another knock at the door. No surprise. When the servants opened the beautifully carved doors, standing there in the twilight was the youngest son. No wagons, no carts, no sacks, no bales, no bundles, just the youngest son and a little paper sack. What? Didn't he understand the challenge here? But he whistled as he walked barefoot across the beautifully polished floor. In the darkened room, next to his father's bed, was the table that had held the 3 gold coins. And what do you think he did? He jingled into his pockets and laid out many silver coins and copper coins. Oh, I didn't need to spend a whole gold coin to solve this riddle, he said. All the servants watched in amazement. What had he done? What is he talking about? Even those older brothers stopped their quarreling for a while. Everyone watched in the darkened room as he reached into his paper sack and drew out 1, 2, 3 candles. Reached in there, struck a light, and lit 1, 2, 3 candles. And that darkened room was instantly filled with light. Ah, my son, said the king, you have thought with your head as well as your heart, as well as your imagination, and you have solved my riddle, and you shall be the new king. And so it was. He became the new king, and peace and prosperity grew even greater in that kingdom. He got his older brothers to stop their arguing and fighting, gave them jobs to do, and they did quite a good job. And everything is still as wonderful as he could make it. I know, because I was over there just a little while ago. I played the harp for his son's wedding, and he told me to say hi to y'all. And that's the end of that. Well, that was very good listening. You made good pictures. And do you think you'll be able to remember the way to solve a problem, thinking about the less obvious answer? That's what stories can do for us. They stay inside and give us solutions and advice and answers that'll get us through life. I met a man once, a professor from Zimbabwe in southern Africa, and although he had many degrees and he was an honored university professor, he had grown up in a simple, traditional village, the old-fashioned way. And we were talking one day, and he told me that where he grew up, in the village, parents pretty much never smacked their children, hardly ever even yelled at them or scolded them. My daughter was little at the time, and I felt a little pang of guilt. I've lost my temper a few times. No, he said, in the village, all the kids have heard all these kinds of stories, like the ones you know, the hare and the tortoise, things like that. They've heard them so many times, they know them. And if you were an adult, you came across some kids having a squabble on the playground, well, you might just do what the older people had done for you when you were little. Take the quarrelsome person apart and say, would you like to take a walk with me and hear a story? Probably wouldn't even think about what story that should be. You'd probably just tell one that you knew automatically would be the right one to tell. Never would he said, would you say, now you see, you're being stupid like that fox. No, just tell the story and let them figure it out themselves. Good plan, but that's how most of our ancestors were educated. Before there was reading, before there was books, before there were schools. And you know what else? People got silly, even grown-ups. So maybe you would like to join in one more silly-ish kind of song with me? I'd rather not be the only one, but I don't mind if I am. I've found that silliness is quite therapeutic, gets us through the tough times. And I was taught this 30-some years ago by an older lady who grew up in Norfolk, Virginia, and she learned this song from her grandpa, so I reckon it's an old Virginia song. It's quite simple. You repeat each line of the song after I sing it, and we have some actions to do, and you just keep doing the action until the song ends. Deal? Not too shy to be silly, I hope? Okay, here we go. My aunt came back from old Algiers, and gave to me a pair of shears. Got it? A pair of shears. My aunt came back from old Japan, and gave to me a paper fan. My aunt came back from the county fair, gave to me a rocking chair. Good. My aunt came back from from Germany, gave to me an itchy flea. Can you do it? Itchy flea. My aunt came back from Jerusalem, and gave to me some bubble gum. My aunt came back from the city zoo, gave to me monkeys like you. Thank you. Appreciate you getting silly. How about singing? Do you ever do that? Well, this is a good song to join in on. Comes from Ireland. Oh, we have versions in America too, but this one's fun to sing. Oh, soldier, soldier, will you marry me now? The hay with the hoe, with the sound of the drum. Oh, no, fair maid, I couldn't marry you because I need a shirt to put on. So she run to the store, run and she run fast as she could go. Hey and a ho and a hey and a ho. She bought him a shirt of the very, very best, saying, here my small man, put this on. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up. If only you were here to sing it with me, but you are here. You can sing it with me. Oh, soldier, soldier, will you marry me now? With the hay, with the hoe, with the sound of the drum. Oh, no, fair maid, I couldn't marry you because I have no, what do you think? Socks to put on. So she run and she run as fast as she could go, with the hay, with the hoe, with the sound of the drum. She bought him socks of the very, very best, saying, "Here, my small man, put these on." What next? Oh, just shout it out. Yeah, pants would be a really good idea. How about doing those next? Oh, soldier, soldier, will you marry me now? With the hay, with the hoe, with the sound of the drum. Oh, no, fair maid, I couldn't marry you because I have no pants to put on. So she run and she run as quick as she could go, with the hay, with the hoe, with the sound of the drum. She bought him pants of the very, very best, saying, "Here, my small man, put this on." What next? Oh yeah, I heard that fourth grader. Underwear, right? Should have thought of that before the pants. Now, what do you think they called underwear 200-300 years ago when this song was new? Not underpants. No, not briefs. Actually, to tell you the truth, historically speaking, men's underwear in those days was not very small. But they called them your small clothes. You wore them under your other clothes, and for short, they called them the smalls. So that's sort of a polite term from the 18th century. Let's use that. Oh, soldier, soldier, will you marry me now? With the hay, with the hoe, with the sound of the drum. Oh, no, fair maid, I couldn't marry you because I have no smalls to put on. So she run and she run as quick as she could go, with the hay, with the hoe, with the sound of the drum. She bought him smalls of the very, very best, saying, "Here, my small man, put this on." I think she'd be getting a little tired by now. And why isn't he paying for any of this? Oh, soldier, soldier, will you marry me now? With the hay, with the hoe, with the sound of the drum. Oh, no, fair maid, I couldn't marry you because I have no hat to put on. So she run and she run as quick as she could go, with the hay, with the hoe, with the sound of the drum. She bought him a hat of the very, very best, saying, "Here, my small man, put this on." If you remember the way this song goes, you can sing it yourself. One of those long car rides, waiting forever for something, sing the song, make it last forever. Think of all the other things that she could be getting for him. Fancy tie. Oh, we didn't even give him any shoes yet. You can make it go on forever. But there is a way that it ends. Let me tell you the last verse. Oh, soldier, soldier, will you marry me now? With the hay, with the hoe, with the sound of the drum. Oh, no, fair maid, I couldn't marry you because I have a wife at home. What a trickster he was. Well, I was doing this song once with some kids in Rockingham County, Virginia. We were practicing for a concert, so they sang it many times every day for a week. And they got so disgusted with him, they made up a new ending. So she run and she run as quick as she could go, with the hay, with the hoe, with the sound of the drum. And she got busy and she married the storekeeper, and they lived happily ever after. Amen. So you can make up your own ending too. But there's some things that are so old and so mysterious, well, there's no words for them. All we have left of this one is the melody and the story that goes with it. It comes from the Isle of Man. Your ancestors may have come from there, or you may never have heard of it. It's a very large, small island, about equally distant from England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales. The people there have their own language. Well, they did. It's nearly gone away now. It's a little like Irish, but they have wonderful songs and stories. And this one is one of my favorites. Halloween's past and gone, but don't you think a little of the spookiness still belongs in this week? I do. And this is one of those songs. You see, once upon a time, many hundreds of years ago, things were not as they are today. There were many strange and wonderful and mysterious things that walked the earth and sailed the seas. And one day, all the people of a village encountered one of those things. A little girl came out from her cottage early in the morning. It was still misty, half dark. It was her job to collect a little wood to start the day's fire. And as she looked over the misty cliffs into the ocean, she saw something, a little speck, coming closer and closer. It came very close. It was a very strange-looking boat, unlike anything that they'd ever seen there before, and they were a seagoing people. She ran and got her family, and they came out and watched. And then the neighbors and the whole village came out and watched as the little boat came closer and closer, and they could see who sailed her. It was a strange person. Well, it looked like a person. It looked like a human man with long, long gray hair and a long, long gray beard. He came into the little harbor down below the cliffs, but anchored a little ways out to sea, too far for anyone to wade out to bring him in. He never came close to the shore. He just dropped the anchor and sat there and sang a song so mysterious that no one could tear themselves away. They just came out and stood there pretty much all the day long and listened to him sing the same song over and over that seemed to speak of the mysteries of the ocean. It seemed to be a message from the ocean. It was in words that no one could understand, but somehow it kind of hypnotized them. When it began to grow dark and the sun began to set, he sailed away, just in the direction he'd come, sailed away until he was a speck in the dark night, he disappeared into it. No one could see another thing, but the song that he'd sung, the melody, it stayed in their hearts. They sang it over and over. At this time of year, they liked to play it and sing it. Well, like I told you, it was hundreds of years ago, centuries ago. But they passed it along, taught it to their children and their children's children and their children's children's children. And one of them taught it to me. And now I'm going to play it for you. The song of the water kelpie. They thought that's who he was, a water kelpie, a supernatural being. don't know if any of the magic rubbed off on you, but it's kind of fun to be mysterious for a while, don't you think? But as I mentioned before, it's also a good idea to be silly once in a while. And educational, of course. I read a wonderful book in the library about the Great Chicago Fire. Have you heard about it? Well, it didn't just happen the other day. It happened more than 120, 130 years ago, or maybe I've lost track of time altogether. Maybe 150 years ago. Oh, go to the library and find a book about it. The Great Chicago Fire. Chicago was at that time the second biggest city in the U.S. Very important place. Nearly all of it burnt up in this fire. The accounts from the time are just fascinating. People 40 miles away could already smell the smoke and see the smoke and flames on the horizon. Not funny how much damage was done and people were killed. For many years, though, something kind of funny was said about this fire. It was believed that a cow started the fire. Oh, you laugh? In those days, before refrigeration, before vehicles, before electricity, yeah, people in the city had cows. Yeah, cows right in their backyard in the big city. That's how they got fresh milk. And it was believed that a cow in the barn out behind the house kicked over a burning lantern and started the fire. Now, today scholars say that is not really how it started, but it does make a good story and it makes a great song. I don't know if you know this one, but it's so fun to do. More fun if I could hear you, but I know you're singing, right? Okay, good. Let's start. Now, it's very simple to learn. One dark night when I was safe in bed, Mrs. O'Leary left a lantern in the shed. Then the cow kicked it over. She winked her eye and said, "It'll be a hot time in the old town tonight." Fire, fire, fire. How hard can that be? Oh, but there's actions too. Makes it actually easier to remember. So like this. One dark night when I was safe in bed, Mrs. O'Leary left a lantern in the shed. Then the cow kicked it over. She winked her eye and said, "It'll be a hot time in the old town tonight." Fire, fire, fire. Easy, right? So one night when I was safe in bed, Mrs. O'Leary left a lantern in the shed. The cow kicked it over. She winked her eye and said, one eye, other eye, both eyes, whatever you can manage. "It'll be a hot time in the old town tonight." And then you call, of course, fire, fire, fire. Okay, let's try it. One dark night when I was safe in bed, Mrs. O'Leary left a lantern in the shed. Then the cow kicked it over. She winked her eye and said, "It'll be a hot time in the old town tonight." Fire, fire, fire. You got it. Great. Okay, let's do it again, practice. But this time, get a little quieter on the first part and a little louder on the fire part, because what's the point of calling for fire if you're not heard? Okay, ready? Got it. Quieter on the first part, louder on the second. One dark night when I was safe in bed, Mrs. O'Leary left a lantern in the shed. Then the cow kicked it over. She winked her eye and said, "It'll be a hot time in the old town tonight." Fire, fire, fire. Got it? Yeah, great. Well, we should get a little louder on the fire part, don't you think? And a little quieter on the first part? You can do that. Come on. One dark night when I was safe in bed, Mrs. O'Leary left a lantern in the shed. Then the cow kicked it over. She winked her eye and said, "It'll be a hot time in the old town tonight." Fire, fire, fire. Great, but I thought you were going to get louder on the fire part. You can, come on, kids, you can get louder than that. Quieter on the first part, though, and louder on the second part. Okay, here we go. One dark night when I was safe in bed, Mrs. O'Leary left a lantern in the shed. Then the cow kicked it over. She winked her eye and said, "Be a hot time in the old town tonight." Fire, fire, fire. Wait, I thought you were going to get louder. You can, Louder. This is the one time you have permission to get louder. Let's go for it. Oh, but quieter on the first part. Okay, here we go. Fire, fire, fire. Oh, excellent. Well done. Very good. Okay, well, I think we have time for another little brief story and finish off with a song. Yeah, why not? Never too late for a song or a story. You know lots of them. Dig them out. I'm not telling any of this kind today, but what about the true life stories? Nonfiction? Yeah, they're great. Well, the Chicago Fire is really a nonfiction story, except when you're being silly like I just was. There's nonfiction stories that happened in your life, amazing things that have happened to you, or that you've been told about, or that you've seen with your own eyes, mysterious things. I have discovered that just about anybody I talk to, if I get them in the right mood, everybody has a story of something so spooky and so weird and so hard to explain. It's very interesting to hear about. And there are stories like this one. This is a little story. I've been telling it for 35 years. Oh, found it in a book in the library. But even though I've been telling it for so long, I still have to be reminded of it from time to time. It's got a little lesson in it that I need to keep teaching myself. See if you can catch it. It's the story of the two buckets. Yeah, buckets. They were speaking bucket language. They were on their way. This was a long time ago. This was a time when there weren't just turn on a tap and get water out. This was a time when somebody had to take a bucket and go to the well or the spring out back or even further, as many people in the world today have to get the water they needed. And these two buckets were on their way again to the well, quite a distance. They had plenty of time to talk, and they had been, because all their lives they'd been back and forth to get water, and again and again and again, and they knew each other quite well. And I think it was the bucket on the left that spoke first. Well, I'm just about fed up. I've had enough of this. All we ever do is go back and forth and get water, get filled up, get emptied out again. I'm just fed up. I'm sick of it. I can't stand it another minute. I mean, how can we keep going on like this? I used to be smooth and shiny and silvery, a beautiful bucket with hopes and dreams. And now I'm just a rusty old dented bucket doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's just not fair. No matter how many times they fill us up, we just get emptied out again. And then the bucket on the other side spoke up. It's funny you should say that. I was just this minute thinking, isn't it wonderful? Isn't it remarkable? No matter how many times we get emptied out, somehow we always get filled up again. Now that's the end of that. But let that story remind us, it just depends on how you see things. It makes all the difference. And that's the end of that. Well, I think we should sing. Just to finish up. Want to join in? I think you'd find this song very handy. I think it's, I learned it from a book in the library. But I was singing it one day with an old man. He'd be more than 100 years old now if he were still alive. Grew up in Charlottesville, and from an old Virginia family that had been in Charlottesville for years and years and years. And he remembered singing this song when he was in elementary school. So that was back in the 1920s or something. Yeah, so it's an old Virginia song. And yet I think you modern kids might just be able to enjoy it. My grandparents, this was a parody. They wrote funny, silly, kind of off-color words to an old song. It was very popular in the 1890s. My grandparents used to sing it. Romantic, sweet love song. Some kids like you got a hold of it and rewrote it. And just perfectly awful. I think you'll enjoy it. 'Neath the crust of the old apple pie, there is something for you and for I. Oh, it may be a pin that the cook has dropped in. Oh, it might be a nice little fly. Yum, yum. Oh, it may be a rusty old nail, or the tip of a kitty cat's tail. But whatever it be, it's for you and for me, 'neath the crust of the old apple pie. That's all there is. It'd be easy to remember. Let's try it with me, because if you ever want to grow somebody out, you got a perfect song. 'Neath the crust of the old apple pie, there is something for you and for I. Oh, it may be a pin that the cook has dropped in. Oh, it might be a nice little fly. Yum, yum. Oh, it may be a rusty old nail, or the tip of a kitty cat's tail. But whatever it be, it's for you and for me, 'neath the crust of the old apple pie. Again. 'Neath the crust of the old apple pie, there is something for you and for I. Oh, it may be a pin that the cook has dropped in. Oh, it might be a nice little fly. Yum, yum. Oh, it may be a rusty old nail, or the tip of a kitty cat's tail. But whatever it be, it's for you and for me, 'neath the crust of the old apple pie. Well done. Well, that's the end of my program for today. Oh, I've got millions more songs and stories. I'd love to do them with you. But you have millions of songs and stories too, remember? Yeah. And you can gather some more. Add to your treasures. Ask people. Ask for their amazing adventures. Remember your own amazing adventures and share them with other people. And go to the library. It's just full of adventures and great things that you can keep forever and share with other people and add to them and make something new out of them. I hope you will. I hope I get to hear them. I hope I get to play with you again. So I thank the York County Library, and I thank the Virginia Commission for the Arts for cooking up a great little program. I had so much fun. Hope I see you again soon. Bye. I'll build my nest in the apple tree, where the bad boys will never bother me.